Welcome back. Today I'd like to continue our series on family business succession planning. This is video 3 in the series, and I really want to just give you 3 simple things to be aware of, 3 pitfalls you can avoid as you work through the process. In video 2 we talked about the 3 keys you need before you get started. Here's 3 tips, 3 pitfalls that many business owners experience or traps they fall into. So I just want to give you a heads up so that you can avoid common mistakes that many others make, and so you can get through the process with a little less aggravation. So the first pitfall to be aware of is that you don't want to leave, and again before I start I'll just say that these videos are primarily directed at majority owners or the group of owners. So first is, as majority owner, again, you're responsible for this whole process. You don't want to leave the next generation in the unknown zone, what I call the unknown zone. And that is where the next generation really doesn't know what the plan is, what the future holds, what your plan is as the existing business owner. I've seen it time and time again, and it's painful to watch, and it's avoidable nearly all of the time, is that if the majority owner would just explain to the next generation what the plan is and formalize that plan, which is a succession plan, so much heartache would be avoided. And what happens often is business owner, mom and dad, dad, mom, whoever it is, grandparents, will say to the next generation, one day, son or daughter, all this will be yours. You know, maybe you've said that to someone in your family. Maybe you've heard it said. The problem with saying something like that is it creates a lot of expectation in the mind of the person you're saying it to. While you have one thing in your mind when you say that, that person's perception that you've said that to, or the business owner said that to, may be completely different. So, you know, they're thinking in their head, they're cheering in their head that mom or dad just told me that one day this business or this farm is going to be mine. And they start making plans in their mind. They get ideas when that will happen, what it will look like, what it will cost. Only to find out as the months and years go by that mom and dad or grandparents meant something completely different. And the next gen has been spent all this time living, working under a certain false pretense that they thought was true. And often mom and dad or grandparents don't intend to mislead, but the result of not being specific when you say one day this will all be yours is that it just leads to all kinds of abstract ideas and expectations and hopes in both parties, but certainly in the next gen party as well. So please avoid that. Please avoid going into the unknown zone. Don't say those things that are abstract and not tangible. If you're going to tell your son or daughter or grandchild that the business or the farm will be theirs, then please have a plan, a formal succession plan to present some ideas. Here's what I'd like to do, son or daughter. What do you think? Let's work through the process together and come to a plan. So again, I see this all the time, and again, it's not done very often intentionally. Usually it's unintentionally, but either way, no matter why it's done, it sabotages family relationships. It just creates, oh boy, disappointment and heartache and frustration, and then, you know, the next gen gets frustrated. They stop performing. The older generation can't understand what's wrong, you know, with them. Why aren't they working? Why aren't they engaged in this? Why don't they care anymore? Why aren't they talking to me? And all kinds of things. So make it easy on yourself. Don't ever say that. And if you did, please take steps to clear the air, to rectify it, to straighten things out. Son or daughter, I shouldn't have said those things, but I'm going to start with a formal process today, and we're going to work through it and come to a resolution, because my relationship with you is important, and I want to make sure that I don't say or do anything that will give you false understanding. Relatively simple to fix, well, maybe not to fix, but to avoid, but certainly possible to fix. So that's pitfall number 1, is avoid the unknown zone. It's just quicksand. Okay, second is don't pass the sticky baton. And again, this is directed at at ownership, at majority owners, and we've all heard the phrase and used the phrase, passing the baton, a track and field reference of runners, on a relay team, the leading guy passing it to the guy behind who takes over. And really, it's a great metaphor for business succession planning, because ultimately that's what happens. The lead runner passes the baton back, the lead runner slowly jogs to a finish, and his race is over. But the runner that just got the baton is now in full stride, running with it, moving forward for an indefinite period of time. So a great analogy to use, but also it's a big problem. And so what I mean by sticky baton is you've told the next gen, as the majority owner, what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how it's going to look. You're in the process of passing the baton to the next gen, and then you decide, I'm not quite ready. I said I was going to step aside when I turned 60. That would be the triggering event that put the succession plan into place. But I'm 6 months away from that. I just don't feel like I'm ready. So I'm going to pull back the baton, and it'll be 61 or 62 will be when this whole thing starts. So I hope you can imagine as majority owner what that does to the next generation. Often they're in their 40s, sometimes older, in their 50s when this is going on. Certainly in farm families, that's very often the case. Extremely frustrating. Again, it leads to all kinds of hard feelings on the part of the next gen to the older generation. And once again, it's really avoidable if we create a plan and we stick to it. And that's just so important to maintain communication and trust and harmony in the family. So please don't do that. Please don't pass the sticky baton. When you're ready to pass that baton, you pass it, pat them on the back, and support them as best you can. And in return, I'm sure they'll respect you and appreciate the way that you've handled the situation. So third is how you deal with the value of your business. So the third pitfall is, in my experience, the majority, and I say this honestly, the majority of small business owners incorrectly value their business. And when I say incorrectly, what I really mean is they overvalue their business. They assume that because they've worked that business for 20, 30, or 40 years, that it is worth a certain value when they walk out. And sometimes they're right, but again, in the majority of cases, they've misinterpreted things. They've added value for the time they've been there, and the blood, sweat, and tears, and the sweat equity, and all those things where the financials, just don't bear it out. And again, I'm talking about avoiding pitfalls. I want the succession plan to get created and formalized and implemented for you so you can go enjoy the next phases of your life. But if you overvalue your business, your kids or your grandkids aren't going to be able to afford to buy it. The company can't sustain their payments to you, pay them, pay all the expenses of the business. So the value of the business needs to be realistic, needs to be fair to you, needs to be fair to the next gen. So fairness isn't the problem. The problem is the business owner not taking the steps to get the business valued. And you can do that a couple ways. You can get a professional opinion of it, which is what we would provide. This is our best opinion as to what your business is worth after we've looked at a number of factors and valued it different ways. Or you can go to a certified business appraiser and get a certified number for what your business is worth, and use that as a starting point for your succession plan and how you're going to structure the deal. Either way, you need to get some professional help valuing your business so that it's realistic, so that when you sell it to the next generation, you're getting fair value so that you can sustain yourself for the next part of your life, and the next generation is paying fair value so that they can afford it, the company will stay viable, they can earn a living just like you did. So there needs to be some realism in both parties, in the buyer and the seller. But again, as I mentioned on a previous video, sellers and buyers have differences of opinion when it comes to value. It's always the case, almost always. So you need to invite a third party in to get some help and to get a range for what your business is truly worth on the market. And that will give you a great starting point for moving forward with the discussions and communications with your family members and with other professionals involved in the process to make sure that it's a win-win financially for all the stakeholders. Extremely important. So real quick, those were 3 pitfalls that I want you to avoid as you work through the process. So just be aware of those 3 things: the unknown zone, the sticky baton, and misrepresenting or misguessing on the value of your business. If you can avoid those things and do the things previous that we've chatted about in these videos, you're well on your way to creating and implementing a very successful succession plan. So again, thank you for stopping by, and we'll continue our series on the next video.